There's probably going to come a time when you're not just wanting to add just a static stroke to the objects that you're creating in Illustrator. You might want to add dashed or dotted lines or even have arrows that point to certain things, whether you're annotating a chart or just pointing to something in a wireframe. There are many uses for dotted dashed lines and lines with arrowheads attached to them. So in this movie, I'm going to show you how to do that via the stroke panel. You can open up the stroke panel on its own by going to the window menu and going down and choosing stroke. That's going to open that up for you. It's right over here in your icons on the right-hand side, or you can simply use the drop-down from this menu up here in the control panel. Either way is perfectly fine. I'm just going to drag the stroke panel out so you can see it. And then to see the full view of the stroke panel, you need to open up the flyout menu and choose Show Options. That's going to give you all of the different options that you have available to you. So let's start up here and let's work with this sort of circle that's got a big gap in it. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating almost like a loading icon. So first thing we're going to do is increase the size of the stroke. So let's increase that pretty significantly to something like 15 points, maybe even more than that, maybe 20 points. And you can see here, because this is an open path, meaning there's no closed segment right here, I'm only able to align the stroke to the center because technically Illustrator doesn't know where the inside or the outside of this object is because it's not a closed shape. You can also see here that we can adjust the cap settings. I didn't talk about this much in the last movie about strokes, but let's talk about it now. So right now, it's got a butt cap. That means that the cap basically stops where the anchor points stop for this shape. You can also add a round cap, and when you do that, it just kind of rounds it off. And then you can also add the projecting cap, which is going to give it a little bit of extra space on the end passing by the anchor points. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to just leave this on the butt cap. And then what we're going to do is come down here and we're going to change the arrowhead settings for this. So for the arrowhead settings on the left, that's going to be up here, and on the right, that's going to be over here. And so the first one here, let's just drop this down and let's scroll through the list. And basically what we're looking for is arrow 21. And when I do that, you can see that it adds in the arrow. And actually, I got the arrowheads backwards here, but that's okay. You can easily reverse them by clicking this little button here. Now, if you see that the arrowhead is a little too big, you can scale it down. Easiest way to do that is to do this right here. You can link these together and then just scale down until it gets exactly like you want it to be. So in this case, I think maybe 30% of the original size works out well. You can also choose if this extends beyond or stops at the ending anchor point. So in this case, I think I'm going to have it extend beyond, and we'll just leave it like that. And then let's go ahead and change this right here to one of the arrowheads. So let's do something a little bit stylish. Maybe let's see if one of these might fit the bill. Something like arrowhead. Let's just do arrowhead 2. That looks pretty good. There we go. And now this arrowhead looks a little too small. So what I'm going to do is increase the size just a tad bit. There we go. If you don't like the other one here, this one, you can always change that to look like something else, but I think it looks pretty good the way it is. So there we go, kind of like a little reload icon or something like that. And then down here at the bottom, let's select this, and let's go ahead and beef up the size of this to about 5 points so you can see it very easily. And then here, we're going to create a dashed line. So let's create a dashed line by clicking dashed line. And then you'll notice when I do that, that the dashed line actually allows me to control the dash size and the gap size. So I could just come in here and type out something like 5 points, and then we'll make the gap size 5 points. And then we can do another gap that's 5, 5, 5, 5. So we control that all the way across the board. You can also vary it up. So you could do something like a 2-point gap in between a 5-point dash. Or you could vary up the sizes of the dashes depending on what you want. You could almost create like little dash patterns in here. You can also select how the dash aligns to corners. So you could say preserve the exact dash and gap links. That means no matter what, the dash is always going to be 5 points, the gap is always going to be 2 points. Or you can say align the dashes to the corners and path ends, adjusting the links to fit. Let's zoom in here on this corner point so you can kind of see how this changes. So this is what it looks like normal. If I click this on, you can see now that it gives it a nice crisp edge as opposed to that where it doesn't really line up. So if you have sharp corner points and things like that, it might be a good idea to adjust your settings to accommodate that. Now, in addition to adding the dashes here, you can also add arrowheads to this as well. So I could drop this down and I could add an arrowhead here, and I could drop this down and add an arrowhead here as well. I can scale those arrowheads just like I could on the other shape that we drew. And then, of course, we can also change the profile of this. We haven't talked a lot about profiles yet, but let's take a look at that. So the width profile here, that makes it go kind of small, go into larger, and then back to small. You can do something like this where it starts out real thick and goes to thin, just a way of sort of mimicking natural pen movement with this kind of stuff. And you can create some really interesting looking effects with it. So this is one of those things that's going to be different for every single project that you do. I just wanted to point out all of the different controls that you have at your disposal in here so that you can see exactly what they are and how to use them. So hopefully now you have a good understanding and a firm grasp of what a stroke is and also how to apply it to your artwork going forward.